As a die-hard Marvel fan, and having been so eager with the hopeful entrance into quality video games such as their recent Spider-Man games, it's surprising that I'd pretty much written off this game. Still scarred by Marvel's Avengers and the disappointment that game brought, I had no anticipation for future Square Enix Marvel games. And honestly, when the game was announced, it didn't look all that interesting, and I had significant issues with the concept. While playing as the Guardians was an obvious great choice for a game, from the get-go there were some worrying elements. Only playing as Star-Lord, the aggressive linearity, it looked like an MCU knockoff rather than trying to propel its own unique artistic identity. And after the fumbling of the Avengers game, I kept waiting to hear when they were finally going to announce all the live service aspects that this game would have. My worry was in vain though, because while I expected nothing good to come from this, a largely forgettable experience at best, I was completely shocked at what Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy ended up becoming. Because playing this game, it is aggressively and unapologetically a linear, single-player, story-based third-person action adventure, and a flarking good one at that. Where Guardians most surprised me was with its gameplay design. With the Marvel Cosmic Universe being so varied and incorporating so many different worlds, I immediately expected a hub-based experience, taking the Milano and choosing places to visit such as Xandar, Nowhere, or any of the other hundreds of places from the comics. And in fact, you can't choose to take the Milano anywhere. This game is just as linear as the best of Naughty Dog, and the developers here have crafted this journey for you. Your role here isn't to steer the ship, it's to play along. There's a sort of old school vibe throughout the game, reminiscent of games like Uncharted, when these days so many single player games want wider and more expansive experiences. Guardians goes against that grain hard. But there's still a huge sense of exploration here. While you can't choose when and where to visit, this game is still brimming with diverse environments from the Marvel lore, and I was eager to see every single place. From well-known places like Nowhere, from the films, or first seen from the page such as the Quarantine Zone, they put their heart and soul into this world and it shines through. Exploring these places, unique in its own right, but there are constant small puzzles throughout the world and bits of light platforming as well to observe these beautiful land and spacescapes. Combat, I would say, is one of the weaker points about this game. It's by no means bad, but enemies are insanely spongy, even after upgrading Quill the Guardians a lot. The core to this is Peter's elemental guns, which gain variety throughout the game as you gain different elements moving from frost to lightning to wind to fire, and each enemy type being weaker to a different element. The enemies are also varied. In space there are lots of different creatures and aliens, and that shows each environment having some new form of enemy to face. The best part about this combat system is the use of the other Guardians. I was really disappointed to find out you could only play as Peter, because well, this team has the perfect team setup to experience different playstyles. Star-Lord as the ranged, Gamora as the assassin, Drax as the brute, Rocket as the armorer, and Groot as the wild card. I still maintain that in a sequel or new franchise and take on this franchise, I would love to play as all the Guardians, but for this game, what they do works incredibly well. We've seen real evolution in how companions in games work over the last decade. What was once largely annoying due to AI has now become a staple in some of the best games of all time. Elizabeth in Bioshock Infinite, Ellie in The First Last of Us, and Atreus in God of War, just to name a few. Guardians, I feel, elevate this, as all the characters in these games do is assist. Elizabeth passes ammo and Atreus just tries to stun them. But the Guardians are integral and more often than not are much more useful at dealing damage or combining their actions to take down enemies than simply shooting them as Star-Lord is. It makes excellent use of the Guardian system as a team and their own unique abilities, such as Groot's vines to trap enemies, Rocket's weapons to take out wide hordes, Gamora's precise and deadly attacks, or even Drax's strength. They are the focal point of the fight, all while you, or Peter, are commanding them and their actions. Going in, I was probably most worried about this group of Guardians as a team. The team was not very popular before the films, and I felt what made these characters resonate with wide audiences was largely due to James Gunn and his effect on them, and I was seriously concerned about what they were going to do, whether they were going to take the less popular version from the comics or create a cheap MCU ripoff. The result, they did something else entirely, becoming my absolute favourite version of the Guardians we've ever seen. These characters take a lot from the comics and the films, but turn them into their own and shape their own journeys and each of the characters' unique backstories. The characters reference the Galactic War, which is when Thanos went to war with seemingly the entire cosmic universe. It's heavily implied that Drax avenged his family and slew the Titan, while Gamora defected midway through the war to fight him. We learn more of Rocket's creation and his treatment, and more about Groot's species. But mostly, we see Peter's childhood on Earth and his mother before being taken away by aliens to come get him, while his mother dies and he is powerless to save her. These characters feel so much more dynamic than other iterations, and it's what's absolutely key to this is the writing. This game does not stop with its dialogue. Whether it's cutscenes, exploration, or combat, these characters are chatting, arguing, quipping, and laughing with each other. And all of this is interesting. We see these characters having serious issues with each other, such as when Rocket and Groot decide to leave the team because of Peter. And we see more serious characters such as Gamora let her personality show and banter with the team. For the full 15 hours this game takes, these characters are sharing their experience, and the game is all the better for it, and it was my absolute highlight. Not only are these conversations imperative to the team's development and development of each of these characters, it's also mixed with interesting philosophies, anecdotes, and most interesting to me was the sheer depth of Marvel lore included and explored through these. The writing staff at Eidos Montreal have honestly outdone themselves, with not only how well these interactions work for the full length of the game, but also the characters' dynamics with each other being so playful so it never feels too sluggish or forced for the sheer amount of information this game presents through its dialogue. Lastly, we come to the story, and it's a powerful one. We meet the Guardians already formed as a team, but clearly not the well-trained unit they're aspiring to be. These characters' personalities often clash, and a lot of them haven't learned how to treat their teammates or to even accept them. We start pretty low level. Simply, these are some heroes for hire, and they're trying to catch a monster to obtain a bounty. What happens when they attempt to find this monster though, unleashes a power that will corrupt the galaxy, and which Peter is directly responsible for what happened, and how to stop it. I don't want to get too much into spoilers, as I think the story is something that really should be experienced by playing. But I love the way they build this team up, from simply trying to make some money to pay a fine, to having to save the galaxy from a much larger threat. All while the stakes are huge and widespread, but also deeply personal, especially for Peter, with how the game utilizes characters such as Kor-El, Nikki, and Peter's connection to them. Each Guardian also has their own arc that ultimately culminates with each of them learning how to be in the team and fully utilize the Guardians of the Galaxy to its full potential. The game also has great dynamics with supporting characters such as Mantis, Cosmo, Adam Warlock, and many others from the Marvel Universe, with also some cheeky references to Earth and the Avengers. I really appreciate how the story isn't rehashing popular stuff from the MCU. Thanos is dealt with and we aren't going to retell those story beats, and instead sell something completely new, utilizing so many concepts, stories, and characters from the Marvel Cosmic Pantheon. Ultimately, the best thing about the Guardians of the Galaxy though, is that it's truly the type of superhero game we need. A strongly written single player game with a focus on character and story that smartly and uniquely utilize the characters, worlds, and stories from the comics, while making that a joy and addicting experience to play through. I sincerely hope we get more games of this caliber, and that it shows Marvel and DC both that these are the games people want to play. Games like this, games like the Batman Arkham games and Insomniac Spider-Man games can truly pave the way for a golden age of superhero video games, as long as they learn the right lessons. Thanks for watching this through. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, and if you want to see more, subscribe. And let me know what your thoughts are on Guardians of the Galaxy, and generally just the state of Marvel and superhero games in general, and what you'd like to see. Cheers, and have a good one.